Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 15th June 2016. The first article here is related to terrorism and with regard to the lone wolf attacks and what is the difference between Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Now, Islamic State has grew as more lethal than Al-Qaeda. So in this context now, in the West Asia, Al-Qaeda and Islamic State are competing for the recruits, funds and prestige. So, what makes IS more lethal than Al-Qaeda? Let us analyze in this article. IS has mastered the technology and it has got a great control on internet. So as internet is spread across the world, without the physical presence of the people, it can perpetuate the terror in the Western world. Now if you can see the recent terror attack in Florida's gay club, it is nothing but an ideological spread of the IS using the internet. And Al-Qaeda never had the control over the internet and use of social media. And second, the ISIS to itself has a state structure, a governance structure within a defined territory. Now, in Syria and Iraq, it has established a caliphate of its own. And in this, it is collecting the taxes, administering its own rules and laws, and also maintaining its finances. On the other hand, Al-Qaeda is majorly dependent on the finances provided by the wealthy people. Third is, the ISIS is more targeting on the near enemy, that is, the non-believers in the West Asia. On the other hand, Al-Qaeda has targeted the Western powers, especially United States, which is supporting the monarchy in the West Asia and North Africa. So the Arab rulers, US support to the Arab rulers was hated by the Al-Qaeda, and in this context there are fundamental differences between these two. Now ISIS more is holding on to the civilians and causing huge civilian casualties compared to Al-Qaeda. So in this context, what we can say is the control over the internet is something which has to be regulated for this, so that terror can be stopped. And the second thing is Al-Qaeda, it is urging or it is facing a resurgence plan, or else it has got an enemy within, that is ideological war which is happening with the IS. So that's why the resurgence of the Al-Qaeda is a major problem for its own self. But however, it is not totally dead. It has its own strong elements or strong presence. If you go see the Syria, so in Syria we can have the Nusrat al-Jihad. This is a opposition, a radical element which is close to Al-Qaeda. And further to this, the funds still are strong for the Al-Qaeda, they did not dry up. So these are the things we need to remember. So how we need to fight against this? So whenever there is a hatred spread on the internet, what is been said is, a counter movement has to be started and counter radicalization has to be started. And the second thing is the financial channels, especially the oil is the major financial channel for ISIS, and these financial channels have to be struck or closed. Now coming to road accidents in India, more than 1.4 lakh people are killed in road accidents as per the reports of the Ministry of Road Transport. So in this context, road in India is more seen as a part of the civic life. There is a community activity which is clearly visible on the roads in India. So in this context, more and more accidents which are coming forward are visible on the roads. It shows indifference and also a devaluation of life. So in this context, what we need to do is, so there is a collective crime against the society in the form of road accidents. It is a collusion between improper engineering of the roads, improper policing of the roads, and also planning and poor civic sense. So strict enforcement of the laws, speed regulation on the roads, and added to that, providing for the safety or safety plans are making the road safety ingredient to our education and our bringing, this can change the situation. Now coming to again the recent terror attacks in the United States of America. So there are three factors that are clubbed. One is homophobia, and the second one is with regard to the lack of gun control in the United States of America, and then Islamic State and its presence across the boundaries. Now, if you see, it is not just confined to one ethnicity or race in the United States of America. So across the races, wherever there is a phobia to the or group hatred, this kind of violence is growing. The existence of gun culture is perpetrating this particular violence. And added to that, there is radicalization which is growing from the across the borders. So now the first thing to avoid this lone wolf attacks, the gun control regimes have to be brought in. In spite of President Obama pitching for it, the Constitutional Second Amendment Act supporting the possession of a gun and National Rifle Association having control or a strong lobby with the Capitol Hill. So these gun control regimes are not moving forward in the United States of America. So that is the need of the hour. Now coming to higher education, in the higher education, if you observe in the 2013 data, the 13.5% are enrolled in the higher education. The two major problems of higher education are the gross enrollment rate, it is very low, and then access to education, it is also very poor, especially the financial access. So in these circumstances, the government has launched Rashtriya Uchitar Shiksha Abhiyan, RUSA, and its target is to achieve 30% of the gross enrollment rate by 2020. Again, even improving the access, the National Knowledge Commission headed by the Sam Pitroda, what it said is, the public sector alone cannot do that and private sector collaboration is necessary. If you see the total funds spent by the government on higher education, it is less than 1% of GDP. So in this context, expansion of the quality private education shall be considered as a solution. Now coming to the RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Now, the United States is proposing for, the Trans-Economic Partnership. So, it's a Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, counter to this, the China-led RCEP is growing. So, in this context, there are many hindrances towards the intellectual properties. There are more stringent norms over the WTO's TRIPS. So India recently promised at UN that it will continue with the TRIPS flexibilities. So these flexibilities made India the pharmacy of the developing world. But if you see the conditions under Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, they are becoming more stringent than Trans-Pacific Partnership. The major preachers for this are Japan and South Korea. So the two conditions that can be game changers are, one is data exclusivity and the second is patent term extension. What is this data exclusivity? So the clinical trials, they will generate the data with regard to the potency, bioavailability, various other parameters of the drug. So now this data will be available only to the company which has produced that, even after expiry of the patents for another 5 years. So no company cannot, or else regulators cannot approve a similar drug with a similar data for the next 5 years. And patent term extension. Now normally a patent gets an exclusivity for 20 years. Now if the process of patent approval is delayed, then the delay has to be compensated. For example, patent approval took some 5 years. This 5 years shall get extra for the patent rights for that particular company. So these are going to increase the cost of the drugs. That's why Medicine Sans Frontiers, that is Doctors Without Borders, they urged India to take note of these particular things and to maintain TRIPS flexibilities. Now Microsoft's new link. So you know that Microsoft has brought LinkedIn. So as technology is changing, Microsoft is failing to catch it up with this. Now if you carefully observe, Microsoft played a critical role with regard to 80s and 90s, it was the legend. But today as mobility has increased, social media has come into the picture and it has changed the face of the internet altogether. So in this context, in the world of mobility, Microsoft failed. Though it has acquired the Nokia, it failed to occupy its space. And then today LinkedIn, a professional network, The Microsoft tries to find its edge in by acquiring this LinkedIn. Now, coming to the AAP dispute in Indian Express, the 21 MLAs of the AAP government, these are appointed as the parliamentary secretaries to the key ministers in AAP government in Delhi. So, there is something called Office of Profit. So, under this Office of Profit, these are not excluded. Parliamentary secretaries are not excluded. So, what is an Office of Profit? So, now, generally, the executive and legislative functions are different. The legislature shall not come under the influence of the executive, so that the legislative member shall not accept the governmental positions. So that's why the constitution has given the right for the state legislative assembly and the parliament to determine certain offices not to be offices of profit. So holding any office other than that, that can conclude as the office of profit. So in these circumstances, over years certain norms are being developed. Among that, it will the position which he is holding shall not be in a payable position. It shall not have due powers. The executive shall not have the control over the position with regard to the appointment, removal, etc. These are the norms which are evolved in defining an office of profit, but they are not, regulated by law. It is ultimately the parliament and state legislative assemblies decide what constitutes to be an office of profit. So this is what we need to understand. Thank you very much. All the best.